Feel awake.
One thing I didn't talk about yesterday, which would be a nice thing to touch upon, is a good attitude to sort of a good mindset in terms of how to approach this stuff. To get the most out of it, you're not doing yourself a favor to think of yourself as in an audience, sitting there listening, being passive, and me as a presenter or a performer who's up here being active, and you're sitting there sort of like watching TV, just sitting there, enjoying the show. A more engaged and productive mindset might be to see yourself as you are here as an explorer of your own situation. You're here alone. You're not part of a group. This is you're alone in your experience, and you're curious about what this is. I'm here as a resource to potentially aid you in that exploration. So, you can maintain a positivity, maintain a proactive, you're here for you, checking yourself out, and the situation and meeting and all that is just a potential aid to that, a potential resource that you can draw on in your own active engagement with your own situation, which of course you brought with you. Conveniently enough, here it is. So, we covered a lot of ground yesterday. I'm sure you're glad of evening's rest. Hopefully you had a good rest. I think it would be good to start off looking at the relationship between what let's call it direct experience, a raw experience, and interpretation. This relationship is inconceivably complex and subtle and befuddling and confusing, and is basically the thing that we're likely to have been tripping over all along. Interpretation and raw experience are not a dichotomy. They are not opposites. The one is not, north and the other isn't south. They're not a polarity at all. They coexist. They eternally and intrinsically coexist. There's no such thing as raw experience without interpretation, and there's no such thing as interpretation without raw experience. It's very easy in this kind of exploration of yoga, like we dealt with yesterday at great length. It's very easy to dichotomize them and to hold interpretation and mentality and all that is sort of the bad guys, the devil. That's like the bad thing that you try not to do, and then the good thing is to be noticing raw, direct experience, what have you. And it's an interesting point of view, but it's not accurate, and it's not really very useful beyond just a real getting started kind of a beginning engagement. When you begin to look at your experience, of course, you'll notice that raw experience and interpretation coexist. There's always, you look at your experience and you experience whatever you're experiencing, and you experience it in the context of a mentality, in the context of a profound, very functional, very intelligent, automatic assessment and interpretation that the mind instantaneously spits out. So these two worlds are always, coexisting, interpenetrating. They do not block each other, and this is the great aspect that we take advantage of in this yoga. Because in ordinary, let's say, a human normalcy, in normal human consensual reality mindset, people tend to think of their interpretive experience as being objectively true. They tend to smear these two things together with a bias towards and a dominance towards the interpretation. So even though the raw experience, let's call it the sensory experience, you know, the patterns, the colors you see, the actual sounds you hear, the actual sensations you feel, and all this sort of thing are present. The dominant tends to go to, oh, I'm feeling my fingers touching each other, I'm feeling my butt on the chair, I'm seeing a room and a bunch of people in colorful clothing, and so on and so forth, which of course is mental interpretation. But they coexist with the actuality of the presence of the colors, the presence of the tingling and consciousness, and so on and so forth. So, this sort of fork in the road, you know, every instant, I mean, to sort of paint it metaphorically, every instant, if you look at your experience, you're at a fork in the roads. And you're looking at direct experience and you're looking at an interpretive framework. And it's always the case. It's not like you can move towards one or towards the other and leave the other behind. Even if you try to do that, you find yourself at the same fork in the roads. And you're always at this fork. You're always at the fork in the roads. There's always direct experience, raw experience. And there's always, you know, mental interpretation present experience.
So Peter, if I'm sensing, I'm experiencing sensation without thought, is that the raw experience? Are you saying that is or isn't objective?
It's all objective.
It is objective.
Everything exists. But it's not, as soon as you say it's a sensation, that's already an interpretation.
Because it's words.
Because it's an idea, it's an interpretation. It's being held as something. I mean, interpretation is subtle. You know, there's gross interpretation, like having words, having labels, having descriptions, having history, you know, like quoting an encyclopedia entry. And there's subtler layers of interpretation, which is just a kind of a knowing that, oh, this is vision, even if I don't put it into those words. The vision itself doesn't even know it's vision. It's just this amazing presence.
That's brilliant. And now just help me understand what's objective and what's not objective. I don't get that.
Well, objective and subjective is not a useful qualification.
It's not.
Everything is subjective and everything is objective. There's no meaningful difference. Everything is in your experience. Everything is your experience. So if you want to say, but that's all complete subjectivity, that's solipsism, so be it. Or you can say, everything actually exists, and the only thing that exists is my experience, and that's the objective fact, and that's total, there's no subject there at all, it's all objectivity. And that's another way of stating exactly the same condition. There's only one thing present that includes all of its aspects. So whether you want to qualify that as subjective or objective is splitting hairs irrelevantly. Subjective and objective is, again, it's an interpretation that is relevant if you believe it's relevant. It happens to, in fact, not be relevant.
Okay, I'll leave that one. Thanks.
So anyway, so by and large, this is all about developing discrimination. It's not about leaving interpretation and somehow going to raw experience. It's about being able to notice the spectrum. So experience, you can see, it's like a kind of a gradient, a continuum, a spectrum, with at one extreme, there isn't actually an extreme, but let's say at one direction is more interpretive, more mentality. At another direction is more direct, call it energetic presence, or substance, or what have you. And again, the problem of the normal human mindset, which in spirituality technically can be called ignorance, or being a samsaran or something, depending on what your framework is, which is not at all important. The problem with that is we think it's all just smeared together. This is a chair, and I'm seeing the chair, but it is a chair. Whereas in actuality, it's much, much more multidimensional than that. You know, there's the energy presence of the experience of this presence, and there's the interpretation as shared, and they coexist. They commingle. They're aspects of the same actuality, the same present instant of the sort of gestalt, let's call it, of the present actuality, the present radiance. So the trick is to notice the bias, and humans typically are way over biased towards mentality, towards interpretation. And humans typically, unless they're aesthetes or artists or people who really focus on particularities of typically sensory experience or what have you, so it's really very minor subclasses of people that emphasize more in the raw experience aspect of things. So getting that there is this smear, getting that there is this gradient is very interesting, because then you notice that things are not unified. Things are very complex constellations of coexisting energies, much of which are very mental, much of which are very sensory, or let's just say more energy presence, raw energy presence and consciousness, and so on and so forth. But experience itself is not a nice neat whole. It's not a nice neat package, which when one is when one is biased towards more towards interpretive frameworks, seems to be the case. This is the world, and we are in an art gallery, and this is a spiritual meeting, and we are doing this and that, and it all kind of clumps together into this lump that is kind of one thing, and the description more or less encompasses it. Whereas in actuality, it's a hopelessly fragmented, disintegrated, chaotic gobbledygook of just inconceivable information, much of which is more just sort of, strange irrational energy presences, much of which is sort of abstract interpretations, and then all of these things sort of, coexist like a conglomerate, of, if you have concrete and rocks and twigs and dirt and everything in a big ball, and you sort of mush it together and say, look at this ball. It kind of looks like a ball, but if you look at it, it's actually like all kinds of different things that don't really have much to do with each other, but they're all together. They're all just here now. So, of course, I am using words, and so which of course emphasize the idea side of things, which we talked about at some length yesterday, is intrinsically inaccurate. So it's not actually like that. But that is an interesting and it's not wholly meaningless to put it as if it was like it. It can be valuable to look at it in those terms and to begin to notice the complexity and the subtlety and the lack of integration in your momentary experience. And even lack of integration is not a lack of integration that is an actual lack of integration separated from integration. Again, that itself is a continuum. It's a matter of degrees of lack of integration with degrees of integration and all sorts of gobbledygook in between. It just doesn't come together into a simple wholeness. It's an infinitely complex, infinitely subtle, infinitely nuanced continuum, which is one thing by default because it's all here now, but it's infinitely differentiated and fragmented differentiated and fragmented. So, and just notice that fact. Here's your experience, and there's all of these different aspects that coexist. They don't really have much to do with each other. Seeing the colors that are showing up in my field of vision doesn't have much to do with my memory that also shows up in my mind of what I was doing last night. And this, that, and just all of these different little chunks and pieces and little flashes, little snippets of content, in very, some of which are obviously relatively abstractions, some of which are obviously very concrete, sensory, and so on and so forth, and they coexist, sort of spatio-temporally. They're all sort of here now, but other than that, it's just this incredibly nuanced, subtle, multidimensional, this that is it. And of course, we're all very familiar with this because this is normalcy. I mean, it's always been exactly like that, and it's even obviously like that. But, typically, if we don't attend to it, if we aren't edgy with it, if we aren't critical with it, it's easy to go kind of numb and go to a line of least resistance kind of consensual reality narration where, hi, how you doing? What did you do yesterday? Oh, I did such and such. And that becomes kind of almost the whole truth. Yeah. As opposed to an absurdly oversimplified smidgen that has absolutely nothing to do with anything compared to the vast sea of transcendental information that your experience actually consists of. So it's really just a matter of noticing that fact. So it's not, you can't make sense of it. I mean, even this description of it is not something that, yeah, that's how it is. It's not even like that. But the description points out that it's definitely not like we usually think it is. Or let's say people normally or habitually, the default mode, default human mode, and default human mindset of things that this is what's going on pretty much. I kind of got a handle on things. Yeah, right. Like that can happen. So it's noticing that the cutting edge of all of this is in the details. Okay, numbness and stupidity and is in oversimplification, is in broad strokes. Ignorance is, well, here we are at a spiritual meeting, broad stroke. The pretense that includes everything accurately. Then you get, let's zoom in, like what colors are present in what instance, what flavors are present in what instance, what smells are present in what instance, what mental sings and zaps and moods are present in what instance. The details are inconceivably complex and nuanced and subtle and unintegrated. All of these flashes and snippets of experiential content that don't necessarily have much to do with each other except they coexist, right, in the moment, in the flow, in the apparent flow of experience. And so it's in the details that the actual condition is revealed. And this can be a little contrary. I think a lot of sort of sloppy spiritual thinking supposes you're supposed to sort of space out and get vague and like, okay, now let go of the world, go and it's exactly the opposite of that. It's in really getting very, very sharp and precise with exactly what you're experiencing. In the moment that liberation is discovered, the transcendence is discovered. Transcendence is not discovered by going away from things. Transcendence is discovered by being way, way up close and personal, way, way edgy with things. So all the details, all the nuance. And, of course you never get a handle on it, but that's part of what you can discover when you get up close and personal. You go, wow, this is just too much. And it's too much more than too much, and too much more than that. And even too much, of course, is an absurd qualification, but, it's just, you begin to really get the proof, the intimate, undeniable verification of how bizarre this is, how incredibly, too much this is. Too much to get a handle on it in a simple sense, but there's too much. Poetically, it's too much. If you're not looking at this going, wow, fuck me, this is, wow, that's just beginning to scratch the surface of how bizarre this is. And all of that is discovered by really being with what's there very precisely, by going going into it by engagement, by intimacy, not by some kind of a withdrawal or getting fuzzy or, denying or transcending or something. You don't need to transcend it because it is itself transcendental. And if you're trying to transcend it, you're pretending it's not transcendental. It needs to be transcended, which reifies it as a problem, which it isn't. It's the solution.
But I'm wondering about the way of looking. I was playing with the woods, the trees, and I was experimenting with what I call soft eyes, instead of like just looking, the way I normally look. Because I'm still wanting to understand about this being with something.
Sure.
And whenever I try to ask a question, I'm stumbling around, but
It's good.
the looking, am I looking in the ordinary way that I just look at it? The looking at doesn't seem to quite.
Look at is a heavy-handed way of approaching it, because your look at has all sorts of implications. That there's an it, which is the at, there's a you, which is over here, and there's a separation, all that.
Yeah.
So you can do that. I mean, the point is not that there's a good way to do it, to be with your experience, and a bad way to be with experience. The point is, notice the range of ways that you can be with experience, and that range of ways is literally infinite and non-repetitive. You never are with experience the same way twice. That's part of the weirdness. So thinking that you are, thinking, oh, I'm looking at it now, I'm not being with it, whatever, is right away you're creating a fiction. Because the actual fact of experience, where the rubber meets the road, of the event of the moment, is always unique, and it's never happened before in exactly the way it's happening now. And just notice that fact. Yes?
I'm interested in the join between wow, bizarre, weird, and hyperintelligence.
Yeah.
Do you talk about the qualities of true nature of reality, actuality? So I'd like to hear you speak a bit more about the hyperintelligence and how it.
Well, it's all the same. Let's just say the nature of all information, of all experiential characteristics, and the interrelationship of these different natures with itself is all inconceivably intricate, and it's not inert, it's not lifeless, it's not just like it actually is an interrelationship. It is a profundity. It is pregnant with infinite implications, which sort of sparkle off and spin off in different dimensions of mentality and physicality, and there's no way to actually answer your question, but it's all. This is life. This is pure life. It is pure intelligence. There is nothing inert. There is nothing mechanical.
Right. Okay. Does alive apply or not in your experience?
Sure. Absolutely.
It's all alive and dynamic.
Yeah.
And intelligent.
It's pure life, pure intelligence, and its embodiment is all of this inconceivable, bizarre nuance that is as it is.
Bizarre to us. Bizarre to the universe.
Well, it's bizarre. It's intrinsically bizarre because it amazes itself. When you see this profoundly and you're amazed, it's being amazed.
Well, that's kind
And remember, none of this is literally true. It's not like, oh, that's a question, that's the answer, and so remember that.
Yes.
As soon as we're putting it into words, it all immediately includes error. It includes inaccuracy. It's not actually like that, but looking at it in those terms is meaningful, and is an interesting jumping off point to see what it actually is like. And it's not like you ever get to the answer of what it really is like. It's always a looking, it's never a finding. And yet, that it is never a finding is the true finding. when you look at this and you see you can't resolve it, you can't get to the bottom of it, that's getting to the bottom of it. But of course it's all very paradoxical because you haven't actually gotten to the bottom and you continue to eternally look and you always find more and it never resolves.
I love it.
Yeah. Oh no, it couldn't be better. That things are the way they are is just so delightful. I mean, you know, how could it be more fun? How could it be more interesting? How could it be more pregnant with meaning and entertainment?
That's something that my mind sometimes likes to grapple with is when you said it's unknowable, unspeakable, and ungraspable, and yet people like you or others speak with such certainty and absolute, this is how it is.
Sure.
So I kind of, then my mind's like, wait a minute, okay,
Sure.
can't know it, but you know it. Then.
Well, the parrot, you know, looking at me and imagining what that is one thing, but much more intimately look at your own experience where you can't get a handle on anything, but at the same time here it all is, up close and personal, and the same paradox is right there. You know, you can't know it, you can't resolve it, and yet here it is, you know, available. I mean, the whole thing is that's just more of the awareness, that's more of the unresolvability. You know, and you would be very wise to question my certainty. You're the authority. I'm just sitting here making claims. They may be interesting claims, they may be valuable claims, they may even be true claims as far as they go. But, you know, you're the critic, you're the judge. You're the commander of your universe. So you're the authority.
Could it be that the universe seen through your eyes is the way you experience it, and the universe seen through everybody else's eyes is very different?
That's too, yes, certainly, but that's too much projection. You know, it's always best in this to stay very, very concrete, very, very pragmatic. As far as you know, there's only one universe and it's your experience. You know, as soon as you start talking about other people's experience, you're going off into hypothesis. If I actually exist and if I have experience, then perhaps that experience is radically different than your experience, or not. But that's a lot of ifs. So it's pie in the sky. Whereas you have the concrete actuality of your own experience, and it's much more powerful to work with. Because as soon as you go off the hypothesis, anything goes. What if such and such and such and such? Yeah. What if dogs could fly? Yeah. You know, what if, anything? What if ... Yeah. And so as soon as you're off in what ifs, it's not a disconnect from reality, but it's not, it's often to a very specialized aspect of mentality rather than a more inclusive, to some degree, more inclusive gestalt of the whole multi-band, multimedia extravaganza that your experience is in real time. So in other words, it's best not to worry about anyone else's experience. And if someone seems to be talking about their experience, you know, the valuable way to use that is to look at your own experience and see ways in which that information may be a valuable jumping off point for you.
Which would be the proper relationship to have with yours. What we're hearing is yours.
Sure.
Check it out.
Yeah, check it out. But you're the authority. You're the boss. You're in command. You're the active.
Yeah.
You know, you're the active party. You're not, just a passive sponge. Feed me. Tell me what's going on.
So, Peter, you're my resource.
Yes.
I'm alone here.
Yes.
So
exactly.
The words you're speaking, I already know, right?
Sure.
Because
they're all just permutations and combinations of English language, and you know all the words.
But I really don't quite know what I'm saying, other than, in a sense, sort of, I've sort of created you in this moment.
As far as you know.
As far as I know, in this moment. So I can own. Can I own everything you're saying as because it's all my experience, right?
You can own it as your experience. But all that but the question is, what exactly does that mean? What is what is a presence in your experience? That's exactly what we're looking at here. I mean, that's the koan.
Yeah, that's kind of difficult.
Well, it's difficult because it's unresolvable and multidimensional. But on the other hand, it's right here. So it's up close and personal. Your experience is right here. It's available. It's nakedly revealed. It's not hidden. So you can engage with it with a lot of intimacy and check out what it is. Feel your way into it. Not by thinking about it, but by feeling what it is, by letting your own irrational native intelligence just engage with things.
Yeah.
Not without, trying to avoid sending a lot of energy just into, mental thought and analysis and all that, which is all just, you're just gonna wander into, imagination at that point. I mean, this is, that's really the challenge, as the default human mode, human normalcy, human consensus reality, is to spin off into this mentality and to sort of hang out in it as if it's real. I mean, sometimes just watch people chatting together. Like when we take a break, everyone's going to go out and we'll sit there and we'll all be chatting with each other. Just eavesdrop on other people chatting. And notice how everything they're saying is a pure fantasy, has absolutely nothing to do with the actuality of experience. Yesterday I did, I did something, so I saw this TV show and it was like this, it made me feel something. And it's all a complete oversimplification, complete exaggeration, and absolutely not inclusive of the vast range of information that experience actually consists of. And yet humans just just go there, bang. Hi, how you doing? What's up? God, this interesting thing happened. Funny thing happened on the way over here. So this knee-jerk reaction of going to this default mode of spinning off into abstraction and then hanging out there as if that was real life is, if anything, is the enemy. And even, of course, that's not actually the enemy. That's just another aspect of the weirdness. It's another aspect of how bizarre this is, that it does that. Because it's doing that. It's not like it's the right way and you're doing something wrong or evil or stupid. Why does it go there? Because all of your experience is it being what it is. This, what I'm calling radiant presence, this actuality here, manifesting itself as it is. And it seems to like spinning off into all this abstractions, all this bullshit.
We were taught that. I mean, that's what we all.
True. But that we were taught that is it too. It did that. It's doing everything, the whole thing. I mean, it's all inclusive. But the trick is to explore the path less traveled. We're all very familiar with normal modes, right? So you can kind of check that off. Okay, been there, done that, and I'll probably be there, do that a whole lot more in the future. But what else is going on that I don't usually pay attention to? So it's kind of a matter of, poking into dusty corners experientially and so on, that you don't ordinarily give a lot of attention to. I mean, this is the kind of exploration. Just to broaden your own sense, your own appreciation of how vast the dimensions and the range of experiential qualities are. I mean, always right here, right now. This is what it is, and it's when you begin to notice this, it's wonderful. It feeds itself. It's fun. It's interesting. It's fascinating. It's astounding. The discovery of the range of energies and the nature of the way it is and the implications of that it is the way it is. It is just it's a wild ride. It is just pure joy and pure entertainment and pure value.
And yesterday, someone was saying that itself, period, is the payoff.
Mm-hmm.
There's also maybe, is it kind of fun to think about it, that it gets to experience itself in more of the dimensions that it can be, then
Yeah.
we're just in
Because that is its only.
a way of.
No, it's not. It's its only desire. That's what it's doing. That's what this is. The reason this exists is because this is exploring itself. Your experience, reality, exists because what this is wants to explore itself. And so what you think of as your experience is that event. And so it's the absolute exploring the absolute. And so the more you let yourself appreciate the breadth of it, the more you rise or sink or open to its range, its dimension, and become the absolute. And stop thinking of yourself or defining yourself as some little separate, whatever. And you're just this inconceivable, vast, transcendent, can't say. But that's the actual fact, and that fact is discoverable, even though it's not resolvable. It's nonetheless very obvious and very transparent, discoverable. So that's what leads to all of so-called enlightenment and liberation and all that stuff. It becomes more and more clearly obvious what this really is going on here, i.e., what you are and what the world is and all that. And as this becomes more obvious, it's like, okay, cool, that's what it is, and consensual reality and pathetic normal human self-images are left behind as absurd fictions.
So in terms of looking at freedom and determinism, then freedom is the recognition that you can't really determine a thing.
Well, freedom and determination are not really relevant qualifications. What this is doesn't work like that. It's absolutely free and it's absolutely determined. And so, which is completely illogical and doesn't make sense, but there you have it, which is why there are irrelevant qualifications of this.
Irrelevant or paradoxically both true? Or?
Well, they're irrelevant. They are paradoxically both true, but more than that, the whole positing of that duality is based on the entire, all the premises that lead up to that are completely absurd and have no basis in reality. So the entire thing is just pulled out of pure fantasy. I mean, determination and freedom implies event. It implies action. It implies progress, and that's also a completely inaccurate idea. And the way in which it's inaccurate, you have to find out for yourself. In actuality, nothing's happening. There is no event. There is no transition. And the way in which that's true is inconceivably bizarre. But of course, in the light of that, thinking of things as happening through a kind of a determination or predetermination or constraint versus freedom is, well, for that to even be relevant, there has to be something happening, and it's not like that. It's weirder than that. I mean, one way you can kind of access that a little more simply is look at a dream. In a dream, you can dream all of this amazing event is taking place, and all this happened, and this happened, and a lot of stuff happens, and there's things there, and they're interacting, and all this stuff. And then afterwards, you look at the dream, and nothing happened. There was no space. There were no things there. There were no entities. There was no interaction. It looked as if there was. It's a viable interpretation to see it that way, but in actuality, it's not like that. You can't say what it's like. It's not like you can say, no, it wasn't like that, it was like this. The this that is like is unsayable, but it's not like that. And so, all of our ideas of what's happening, or even that anything that's happening, I mean, even that there is space and time is completely wrong. There's no space and no time. It's greater than that.
So is that what makes, let's see if I can put this, because I'm really wanting to understand. So, am I understanding that in a way, what we call this is no different than a dream? I mean, how is it?
Essentially, it's no different than the dream, which is not collapsing into a dream, but it's saying that the way a dream is and the way this is are exactly one and the same.
The way a dream is and the way this is
Are exactly one and the same. On the other hand, don't think you know what a dream is and how it is.
No, I don't. And I wanted to ask about that. So, consciousness is.
You're trying to deconstruct it too much. You're getting too much detail. This is it. Look and see. Feel it.
Because I wanted to ask, where does consciousness go?
There's no where. There's no go. There's no consciousness. Consciousness is only relevant if there was something other than consciousness or non-consciousness to differentiate it from. But where consciousness applies to this actuality, the word matter applies to this actuality. The word energy applies to this actuality. The word you applies to this actuality. The word the universe applies to this actuality. Since all those words are equivalent, they're meaningless and irrelevant.
I'll try to stop doing the boxes.
Well, you don't even need to try and stop doing it. Just see it. See that can happen too. All this can happen. You know, it can be the way it can be, and check that out. And don't think you have a handle on the range of what that can be. The range is literally infinite. That's the real information. If I could give you any actual information, it's that the range is infinite. So as soon as you check something off your list, you've just checked something off an infinite list. It's not like you've checked a category off that includes anything other than an instantaneous point, reality presence.
You said there's no space and there's no time. It's weirder than that. Can
Yeah.
you say a bit more about your experience of that?
Nope. Look for yourself.
Yeah.
Play with it.
But you're telling us about other parts of your experience.
Well, look at space and time. What is the space and what is the time when you're in deep sleep? And as the apparent waking space and time appears when you wake up, what happens? What's that like? Not like you can answer that question. You can't say what it's like. You can't, comprehensively describe that. But just look at it for yourself. And then you go to sleep, the waking space and time disappears. And how does that happen? In what way does it disappear? Where does it go to? Where was it ever? It seems to be here. A profound aspect of all of this can be looked at in terms of the idea of seeming. This presents as infinite, endless, potent seemings. And the seemings seem to be this, that, and the other, and the way they are. And it seems to be space, seems to be time, seems to be a room, seems to be a talk, seems to be you, seems to be me, seems to be, event, seems to be cause and effect, seems, whatever. I mean, just say all the seemings. But all these are just seemings. They're like virtual implications. So, in a very powerful sense, what this really is an implication generator. And the only thing that's actually here is implications of it, rather than actual manifestations of it. I mean, that's a very powerful way to play with this. And again, don't hold that as being true. You just use that as a jumping off point to play with it. Seemings is a really good way to, so any quality whatsoever that seems to show up as being relevant in your experiential categorization of things. Any quality whatsoever, physical or mental, or even the quality of categorizes itself is a category. Play with them as being seemings rather than actualities. It seems to be an actuality. And that could potentially open up a sense of the flexibility and the weirdness and that just because something seems to be there doesn't mean it is there. And so all of a sudden in a way you're precipitated more into ambiguity, more into unresolvability more directly perhaps. But again, you play with it, you flirt with it, it's all a game. And there's no answer and there's no right way to do it or wrong way to do it for that matter.
I was finding kind of a
difficulty or confusion here. At the beginning, you were saying that there's so much more going on than what we are seeing. It's all very complicated and moving, and we don't really know what that is.
Sure.
And then on the other hand, it's all a dream.
Sure.
It doesn't exist, and so
Neither of those is true, and they're both interesting hypotheses to use as jumping off points of
Okay.
exploration.
it's
See,
just,
any way of understanding this or approaching this, no matter how profound, use it as a diving board. So you say, this is not true, but it's an interesting, well, how about if I look at this in terms of that, and then go to the thing itself and see the way in which it really is different than that, other than that. And it always is. It's other than anything, any way you approach it. It's, by definition, it is other. It's other than itself. I mean, it's endlessly weird. How can it be other than itself?
it's continuing to discriminate. I mean, continuing the stance when you do look at that. You said go into the details.
That's what it does. It
It's
dances.
just continuing. It's like a verb. We're in a
Endless.
process.
Sure.
And
Endless.
it's and what stops that process or that verbiage is when we want to tack it down.
And even that doesn't stop it. That's just more of the same. It's just more seeming.
It stops it in us. No,
No, of course not.
it can't.
Nothing stops. There's never an end, there's never a beginning. It's ongoing.
But
But even that it's ongoing, you can't find anything that is ongoing, or even what ongoing would mean, and yet it is ongoing.
But then when you talk about efficiency,
Uh-huh.
being efficient, it's more efficient instead of stopping and trying to label and make this into an experience. It's more efficient of where we're going.
Well, stopping is more of a pretense. You could say there's degrees of inaccuracy. That stopping as an actuality is arguably more inaccurate than that there was no such thing, or some kind of ongoing. Not that the ongoing is true, but it's less untrue. So you have a hierarchy of less untrue. Always wrong, but less untrue. And whenever you get to a profound less untruth, that's also completely bullshit, and there's some profound less untrue than that, which completely invalidates it. Forever, all the way down. Turtles all the way down. Michael?
I don't know if I can express this properly, but so in as much as I surf my experience, still to see it as experience, and even to see it as surfing, still sets up sort of a
If, fall off it. But this is the nature of it. It's like we were talking about yesterday. The process of the pragmatic process of the yoga is be with your experience, feel your experience. Anyway, and whatever that means and whatever that looks like and however that shows up, you do that, and you'll immediately find yourself falling off it. And you let go. You don't try and hang on to it, just let go. But of course, experience hasn't really fallen off, it's right there, and so sooner or later you feel your experience again. And that sooner or later may be the next instant or maybe 5 years later, it doesn't matter. Because of course, ultimately there is no time.
The falling off is experience too.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you don't need to leave it at all.
You never do leave
You
it.
don't.
And you discover that you don't leave it as you get more artful with this dance, with this play. I mean, this whole thing it's a lie. It's not really true. It's a pretense. Yes.
Well, it's interesting, Peter, because, only when I come to talks like this or gatherings where there is any sort of discussion around this, do I start to think about things in a sort of limited way anyway. And then the rest of the time, everything is doing itself. So it's interesting how, when I do get into an analytical sort of process, how little I need to be gratified in terms of, oh yes, I'm noticing more,
Yeah.
or there's really no benefit for this to be aware that anyone is noticing it.
Right, absolutely.
You know, it's
It's
just
a total zero-sum game.
it's sort of
It turns
just-
out to be a complete irrelevancy.
there's just this weird paradox where, you know, there's this ego self or whatever that appears to want to know what everything is, but at the end of the day, all bets are off. So it's just sort of interesting for me to observe that going on. It's the same thing that we do as human beings, you know, as all of this interaction seems to mean something. And at the end of the day, none of it, like if I look deeply, then none of it is real. None of it exists.
And the differences in emphasizing this and emphasizing that and all of that.
Experiencing, which would imply an
It erects a whole implications. I mean, this is actions. This is not an abstraction. And it does not lead to trying to comprehensively indicate what's going on here, what its basic elements. That is somehow inclusive with the principle of the scene, which may or may not be the same principle, and they can seem different ways, but inconceivably weirder than that. Maybe some non-experience will always transcend any schema that you're approaching it from. It's like a map, it's like it's not the terrain. So you go, itself and then pretend to come to itself. And we get all excited because it's our spiritual path and I'm making great progress.
hide and seek would be a good way to play with dark matter and black holes and
all that
holograms
stuff.
and the universes and
Well, mine take a 5-minute break. You know, stretch and decobweb and I recommend it. Enjoy listening to all the complete fictions and inanities and lies and inaccuracies that your fellows are whispering to each other. It's fun to eavesdrop on.
My garden is on the side.
So can we view the finances so I can be done with that for my job? Caught you right. That looks really good, by the way.
Steven, are you in charge of the finances?
Yeah.
I have the Bay Area report. I may as well give it to you so it's all in one kitty,
Well,
and then we can sort it out after the fact.
okay, this is from.
That's from prepays. From
Okay.
The Bay Area from Alma.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
So
Okay.
that's
I'm gonna
anything
actually-
that hasn't come in real time.
Right.
That's that.
Okay, I'm gonna give it to Peter to start.
Yeah, exactly. Just so it's all in one pot, and we'll sort it all out after the fact as the expenses and such.
Let's do this on
Have you talked to your daughters yet about your spring?
No. I haven't talked to anybody. Just heard about it on the way over here.
Where's the earthquakes?
There's an earthquake near Napa, just north of the Bay Area. Yeah. Not huge, it's like a 6.0, but it was big enough to do some damage in Napa and, in Rock, the surrounding area. Big enough to talk about, not big enough to stop the presses for.
What is the age of your daughter?
My daughter, I have 33 twin girls.
Oh, nice. Nice.
The most important one is she came by.
Yeah.
No, it has a big one. Where do you think? Bigger.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't know what to say. I forget what it was now, but I have I don't know, it's one of you talking about some of the stone. Welcome to that rugby line. This is we have a pen now. That would be interesting. It's pretty good.
I'm glad you're here because I
Success. Got your heads.
Thank you.
I just walked up 22nd to whatever that street's called. It was fun. It's a lovely day.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, honey.
How's
it going? How's it going today?
It's going good.
They're letting them ask more questions.
We're having loads of fun.
Yes.
Or should I step in here and help?
No doubt. You
Do it.
I will.
set me straight.
What's your
Yes.
name? Nancy.
We're on break now, so you're not recording or anything?
Yeah. Well, the video's going.
I'll definitely look at it.
All right.
Thank you.
Lydia's is walking distance. I walked past Lydia. Julia's.
I don't know what it
Yes,
is.
that way and fly my flag.
Yeah, but it's an easy walk, it took me 7 minutes. So we could go there for lunch,
Yep.
if you want.
Go elsewhere.
Okay.
Visit elsewhere.
Is Erin here today?
I haven't seen her. Oh, yes, she is. I just saw her now. Maybe I did see her.
Yeah, I saw her
She's
earlier.
right over there outside.
Oh, yeah. Oh, energy, and then Champa, just like it sounds, of course it's not spelled Western letters, so, and I see H, and oh, there's another. Yeah. Favorite things, so, my favorite writers. Yes, Deb. Oh, I have to have that. I'll have to find it out. That's right. You just find it online? Oh, well, I was nice.
Peter, have you talked any further?
Oh, great.
No, he doesn't do any good to plan things with Peter because he's always in the now.
Yeah, that makes
And
total
it happens
sense.
when it comes up, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You know? We'll see.
Yeah, makes total sense. Did I get your telephone number? I think I did.
You got it.
Now, where does he find them?
Valley Village.
Valley Village, where is that?
Oh, Valley Village is, maybe you don't have that. It's just a second hand.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Big second hand store.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Where people like Big Brothers collect stuff.
Oh, okay, we probably have it, I just haven't looked for it. I like shopping at secondhand things.
Yeah.
Consignment stores.
Well, it's like,
Oh, because I'm like a very neat kind of thing, or cookie kind of crowd.
it's like a department store.
Oh, yeah, there's a few like that we have that are actually very much like boutiques. You walk in and you think you're walking into a very highbrow place because they're very selective what's the cake, it's consignment or the bread, she buys it outright.
I have it on
Space from
field because I know I'm sitting here.
you walk in there and you really recognize that you're in a consignment store, so it makes it more acceptable.
Yeah, you go to Valley Village.
It's not like that.
You know, it's not.
Yeah, like that. I go to the hospice thrift store
Yeah,
and their stuff is like, whatever comes in.
It's like the
And you
hospital,
find everything.
but it's much more.
Yeah. I'll look for it. Value Village, the big brothers, big sisters thing, huh?
It's like, there are all kinds of charities.
Under that
They
umbrella.
basically sell Value Village. And Value Village is to some extent, for qualified. They tend to hire people who
Otherwise, right. Yeah, there's other places that do that. I think Goodwill does that.
Yep.
And so does that too. Yeah. Goodwill and Sally Ann.
Yeah. So that's where it came from.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Value Village.
But I'm
Pulling
sure
them
it's
up.
online.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So he finds them online.
No, I would think.
Oh,
you
I
could
would
find
think,
it
oh,
online.
I see that, I can find that online. Yeah. I'm getting to that.
Yeah.
Soon I'll admit to being aged to perfection. I ain't aged yet.
or only parts of me anyway, and they're rather annoying. So I ignore them, like my hips.
There.
I love this, that they have a lighting system that has, they have nothing. They have free nothing.
So,
I know, well, it's
so can you turn nothing off, or can you turn nothing on?
yeah, well, you know, apparently you turn it on and off.
One nothing is on, two are on, and one is off.
That's right.
Thanks.
People sitting there keep turning on these lights though, and they add to the heat in the room, so yesterday I had to get some off. I thought it was Aaron.
I was full like next year.
Ah, yes, that's what, see, I don't even remember what it was, I just know it was somebody doing that.
I've had even less sleep today, but I'm more awake.
Maybe I can turn nothing on though.
I do too, I'm turning it all on, there we go. Okay, on, off, off. Nothing's always happening.
See the switchboard?
That's what there is. That's what there is. Lily, did you get enough breakfast?
Yeah.
Okay, so you got some yogurt and fruit and granola in the fridge.
Because more conversations. Some of their finest. Editor.
We can get these. I think I'll stay here and see if you show over.
There's no, there's no separation, which makes it. I know. Oh, no, he told this. I know. It's really big. Yeah, that's right. And you do, and I go, and then I get pissed off and idiot, and then I go. Yeah, too. I just, no, I just get, that's you.
Peter, did you ever go to the Bouchard Gardens in on Victoria? Many years ago.
I don't think we did.
Uh-huh.
We were in Victoria on that cruise, but I
Yeah,
don't think we
that's
actually
right.
went.
Yeah. It's a little bit north of town.
Yeah, I don't think we were gonna go, but then we ended up not. We ended up
Yeah,
just
that's
hanging out in
right.
town.
Yeah.
So, I guess it's probably a no, actually. I don't think I've ever seen it.
Of what I she's always here. Yeah, well, we all get home and then dream. And over the shoulder, but I love you. She loves you. Stalker.
Ooh.
Something to do.
Sit and visit with you for a minute. I had a really nice walk. Went to the park, walked around.
Been gone this whole time?
Yep. Well, almost. You didn't see me go because you were very busy.
I was
Gesticulating,
I was
going on and on and on.
listening by the time you left.
No, you weren't bullshitting yet. Yeah. I was sitting back there and I decided I was making way too much noise and too antsy after that Vietnamese coffee, so I had to get going. I don't sit very well for long.
I'm not surprised, I have that sense about you.
Oh, yes. Well, you're good with that. Your intuition is good. Oh, there we go.
Maybe we can,
I like how
yeah, why don't you tell them you think to We'll have lunch before lunch.
Okay, ladies and
We'll put
gentlemen,
a chip away.
come on.
Punch the clock a little
Bing,
more.
bing, 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 pass bell.
Just fails. It's pretty interesting when you're very careful.
Julian's?
Come on, chatbot. With his instructions.
By the way, the chai is excellent.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Really good.
Really sweet. I get the spices over at PCC, and you just buy just what you need, and they're all real fresh. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, the coconut chai is
There's a
really
reason
good.
we have it.
Oh, good. Your recipe, of course. I put a little extra ginger in just as I put the tea bags in. I pound it and throw it in. Kind of
Yeah,
set it up a little bit. Oh, yeah. It's got milk in it. That's right.
Yes.
Sometime I'll
It's in the
fry it.
kitchen.
Sometime I'll fry it or so famous. Life tells me that every time I come back, it's like, yeah, we had that. I have no problem.
There's
I love this.
It's a little different.
Oh, okay.
Is it the coffee? Is the Vietnamese coffee? Yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay.
No, later on.
Oh, later on, yeah.
Just a tiny bit of what I'm too. Yeah.
Right? It's like some
That's what I do.
The ginger soup.
Yeah.
Which, you know, means
Right.
And it'll make you kind of.
Are mostly back together, so to speak.
So to speak.
I was just reflecting. Interestingly enough, we're sitting in an art gallery, supposedly, and art galleries are. I mean, art is a really nice illustration of the ever-present dichotomy of interpretive frameworks and direct experience. When you look at a painting, you know, like any painting, there's all sorts of implication about what it is, and yet the painting itself is not any of those. And those two coexist in a very interesting and dynamic way. So it's very easy to be with this dichotomy very nakedly and relatively impersonally. So you look at a painting and it's, you know, this painting of supposedly a pots over here or whatever, it's basically those shades of gray present. And yet, you know, it seems to be pots. It seems to be a still life. It's a flat surface, but it seems like it's a projection of perspective on a table. And the seemings just effortlessly and instantaneously are available. And the fact of its actual presence as you know, just as vision is also available. And the coexistence of those different dimensions is, you know, really quite easy to see in art, you know. And it's nice, it's a little, because of the impersonality, because it's sort of over there, it's really easy to look at that, you know, those modes, the coexistence of those modes, because when it begins to get up close and personal, it can be a little dizzying.
So there's that Magritte who had painted a pipe, I think it
Yeah,
was,
sure,
and then it's not a pipe, or
Yeah.
Duchamp, who kind of took the conception with his urinal,
Yeah,
his
all that.
art.
Yeah, sure. But again, you know, just those two, the coexistence of these multiple modes, just is really plain to see and very clear and obvious. You know, that's how art works. Art works is the use of form to have implication, and the implication is more than the form.
I'm stuck on the up close and personal and dizzying. Can you say anything more about that?
Well, you don't need to worry about it.
I'm not worried.
No, what I mean is, if it doesn't make sense to you, then maybe it's not an issue for you, which is great.
All right.
And on a completely different tack, in terms of seemings, a really interesting exercise or reflection is to look at language, and look if it's just an exercise or a game, or even a thought experiment, you insert the word seeming before any noun that you ever use, and insert the word seemingly before any verb you ever use, and then look at the way your language goes. Any and every noun is actually a seeming. This cup is a seeming cup. Seeming I seemingly hold the seeming cup in my seeming hand, and seeming my seeming hand.
And the verb?
Huh?
And the verb?
Just put a li after the seeming. Seemingly.
Seemingly jumping? I'm trying to get the.
Any verb, you put the word seemingly before it. Any noun, you put the word seeming before it. Let's try it as an experiment sometime.
That's
Another good one
Seeming
is
consciousness seemingly experiences the seeming world.
Mhm.
Seeming me seemingly sits in this seeming chair, seemingly talking with seeming you.
What does seemingly mean?
I don't know. Seemingly.
Peter. Another one is like instead of saying is, replace it with it seems to be.
Sure.
Try that in your
Yeah,
language.
that's
Just inject this notion of seeming before there's any positivity. I mean, semantic usage implies so much positivity. Every word is a positivity that implies that it is whatever it is claiming to be. And seeming just sort of takes the wind out of that, takes the steam.
You should do the same thing for scientific journals.
Well, any use of language. Anyway, that's just a little playful thing.
That's really cool.
Little playful thing, yeah.
So Peter, when you're talking about investigating, sometimes just to kind of, when you're investigating something more, getting the nuances and the subtleties of what you're saying rather than, is that right?
Sure, that's fine. Feel the presence of it. Investigate by feeling the presence of it. Investigate it by braille,
Not with your mind.
by consciousness braille, but not with your mind. At this, the trick is to, because your experience is not by thought. You're not experiencing your experience by thinking about it. Even when you're thinking, you're not experiencing thought by thinking about it.
Right.
Thought is a direct presence that is experienced directly in experience. I mean, I use this word presence. I use the phrase radiant presence I use quite deliberately. Experience is a presence. Experience is an actuality. It's not an abstraction. It's not. Itself is what it is, and it is for real. It's actual. It is present. And that presence, right away, it is present because you're feeling it as present. So that here it is, here this is already is the investigation. Right there. I mean, it's just, wow.
But thought is a concept. And thought is.
No, thought's not a concept.
It's not a concept.
The concept of thought, referring to the actuality of thought, is a concept. But thought itself is an experience. You know you're thinking because you experience it, and experience is not thought. Experience is known. How is experience known? How is your field of vision known right now?
Experiencing.
Well, you use the word experiencing. I'm not feel how is it known? Use the word seeing. It doesn't matter. We throwing a word at it doesn't do it. It's not the word that is seeing light. You can't say what it is it, can you? And yet it is present. It is actual. It's not thought. It's not a concept. Suppose you're thinking right now. How do you know you're thinking? The same way you know you're seeing light. How are you doing it? You don't experience thought by thought. You experience thought by its presence. Thought's an actuality. Thought is real. What thought is about is not real. That's imaginary. But thought itself is real. Right.
So just being here, just showing up for whatever is in front of you.
Don't even need to show up. Can't not do it.
Just be here.
Don't even need to be here because here you are already. It's already accomplished.
Yeah.
It's already a done deal.
The mind wants something to chew on, that's all you're saying.
Not to worry.
Not to worry,
Not
exactly.
to worry. It'll come up with
Chew on
something.
whatever you want.
The mind will spit out some bullshit. But that's its expertise.
And I think you have indicated that what I think Leela means with showing up, sort of being more noticing, more being present, as opposed to being lost in your thought and thinking your thoughts are real when in fact they're just
But it's all here right now.
That gives it a greater spectrum to play with. I think
Well, yes and
she
no.
might be saying something.
Yes and no. That's a good jumping off point. But of course, it's not actually true.
No, so I get that.
I mean, that's a good starting hypothesis. I mean, the whole nature of this yoga is a profound, intense engagement to discover there's no such thing. This yoga is a complete bait and switch. It's a complete fabrication. It's a Mad Hatter's Tea Party. You're looking to see that there's nothing to look and see, and the looking and seeing is already happening. And yet, paradoxically, the looking and seeing is able to discover that. Even though you already know nothing but that.
Yeah, that, it's under scrutiny there's less and less to, it becomes completely not tangible.
It eats itself.
And yet, it's not nothing, that's for
No.
sure.
No, it's for real, and yet it's all bullshit. Spirituality is the incredible, profound, and intimate engagement that reveals that there is no spirituality.
He has sort of some quiet screaming going on
Oh, it's really true. It's really true. So it's a game that reveals that there never was a game. But if you don't play the game, you may not discover that.
I have a question. So, at some point, you notice Peter's doing something silly, and there's silly Peter. And,
Always.
And, but silly Peter might be murdering someone.
Might be. It can happen.
Some of the other schools would have that there is such a thing as maturing the ego.
Sure.
A maturing process where you get to the point where murder isn't as likely to happen.
Sure. That can happen.
So, okay, where am I going here?
That
So
was
there is some
interesting.
value
All
in
right.
that process of looking at your shit and your shit.
Rather than saying there is some value in it, I would say that's viable. That's interesting. That's not excluded. I mean, nothing possible is excluded. Do people kill each other? Sure, absolutely. Do some people not kill other people? Sure, absolutely. Do some people mature and get more functional and wise as a process of learning? Sure. Do some people bollocks it up hopelessly and not? Seemingly. Yeah, it can happen. And is it good to do it? Oh, sure. Why not? By all means, learn. Or not. But it's all nothing. It's all included. It's all allowed. That's all part of. That's all available. Learning is available, wisdom is available, functionality is available, you know. And many people are very dysfunctional and don't learn, and that can happen too. That's another way the radiance can show up, isn't it? And some people have all sorts of elaborate value systems where they place functionality and wisdom and maturity as more valuable than dysfunctionality and immaturity and stupidity. And that can happen too. Radiance can do that. It's all allowed, it's all included. All aspects of human posturing, of human, you know, qualifying is available and clearly seems to happen. And all of that is available to engage in if it seems to be valuable to you to engage in. Or to try and inflict on others if you think it's valuable for them too. Or you can join the 1% and just exploit the shit out of everybody for your benefit. That's doable too, clearly. I mean, you know, anything's on the table. Anything that's humanly possible is humanly possible. You know? But then that raises some interesting questions about, well, what, for any given individual, what is possible? Could you do anything other than what you would do in the particular circumstances that you find yourself in? And would anyone else do exactly what you would do in the same circumstances? Could they even find themselves in the same circumstances? I mean, all of these questions are fascinating, but they're unanswerable. And yet, all of these apparent modes, you know, are available, and clearly we participate in them.
But for you, they're without hierarchy.
There's no hierarchy. Reality has no hierarchy. Galaxies explode. Reality thinks that's fine. Civilizations flourish. Reality thinks that's fine. Genocide happens. Reality thinks that's fine. If it can happen, it can happen. And that's reality's hierarchy. Reality's hierarchy is, if it happens, it happens. It's not a human hierarchy. Most humans are much more particular than that, as we all know. And that's interesting too, because that can happen. and that's fine too. That's not a devaluing hierarchy. It's just saying that hierarchies are just one arbitrary way of being with this, and it's all on the table, it's all available. So it's absolute permission and inclusion for the way things actually are to be the way things actually are.
And for some people to care about having them be different.
Absolutely, because that's the way things actually are.
It's the way they are.
Sure, of course.
Seems like a lot of this is, it's looking like the idea of conceptualization is just an exercise of futility.
Well, yes and no. I mean, we humans obviously get a lot of mileage out of conceptualization.
It's within.
Most of our socialization seems to superficially consist of conceptualization, or at least use that as a dominant medium of exchange and communication and so on. So, you know, to say it's entirely futile is you know, perhaps trivializing it, but it's essentially, it's interesting to see what it is, and it's interesting to see how partial it is. Actuality is much, much, much vaster than the realms implied by conceptuality. Anything describable by humans is a tiny, tiny, tiny subset of actual qualities that are actual and that are possibly actual. You know, we have I don't know, 100,000 words or whatever, right? Some finite number of words in every language. It's supposed to indicate every actuality precisely. You know, it just can't be done. Reality is too detailed and variable and has an infinite range, and language is small and limited, and each word has a very limited range of it means, you know, has only a certain narrow range of, you know, of implication or whatever. Anyway,
Well, I thought I heard you say it was dumbing down medium?
Did I say dumbing down medium? I don't recall saying those words. Maybe I did.
That is kind of what it is.
Maybe in your universe I did.
What did you say then?
I have no idea. Let me listen to the reruns. It's been recorded.
Just now?
Yeah, when
I
he
didn't-
said something medium, dominant maybe?
I might have
I
said
heard
dominant. I
Oh,
might have said
dominant,
dominant.
okay.
Dominant.
I heard dumbing down and it sounded totally perfectly to me. It's like, oh yeah, of course it is. Conceptualization.
Well, we all hear
dumbing down
what we
medium.
want to hear. I mean, if people compare notes as to what we hear, what did you just hear him say? I don't, blah, blah, blah.
Well, conceptualization is sort of a dumbing down medium.
What do you make of skillful means?
Yeah.
Have at it. But skillful means is an art form, as opposed to a fixed, finite, specific thing. Skillful means is a vector of subtlety, and there's no limit to how subtle you can possibly be. There's no limit to how skillful one can possibly be. I mean, in one sense, everything we're talking about here is skillful means. It's being, what I try to present is implications of alternative ways of being with your experience that may not be our customary or normal way of being with it. And that's all skillful means. Being with your experience in fresh ways or novel ways, or jumping off of any, seeming limitedness or restriction into opening to greater possibility. All of that is all skillful means.
Morality seems to get tied up.
Sorry?
Morality seems to get tied up a lot with how people talk about skillful means.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He ain't doing none of that.
But again, morality is a relative framework that depends upon how you define it. And any person with sufficient skill, i.e. skillful means, can define a framework of morality any way they want to. Look at the Nazis. They probably thought they were being very moral. Purifying the race.
Peter, when you talked about all different aspects or reality doesn't care about genocide or kindness, that kind of thing, it caused me to feel profoundly kind of hopeless. And I feel very emotional about it. I don't quite know why.
Okay. Well, this is good though. But what is hope? I don't mean
Well,
in the abstract. I don't mean personally to you. I mean, what is the mechanism of hope?
Well, maybe that was just a word I used because
Right.
to describe how it made me feel, which kind of surprised me.
Right.
Because when you talk of reality as infinite intelligence and actually weird and beautiful and bizarre and amazing and all of those things, but I miss, well, the glimpses I've had of reality has been of this infinite love, So my perception of what reality seems to be to me is one of this field or force or energy of again, infinite love. I mean, I can't really describe what I'm talking about. And it puzzles me because I don't.
Well, I agree with you.
Are you understanding anything I'm talking about?
I think so. What do you mean by love? What does love mean to you? I agree with you. Reality is a field of infinite love. I could tell you what love means to me in that context. What does love mean to you in that context?
In that context.
And in what sense does what we were discussing in any way violate or go against that, or a conflict, let's say, to any degree with that.
Well, the reality of love with capital letters
Right.
can't be described because
Oh, sure.
it can.
Is love a partial thing such that there can be something else that is not love?
No, not in reality. In reality,
Okay.
that's what it's made of. It's
Okay.
the
So
stuff.
if the universe is a field of love, how does genocide in any way create a problem with that?
Well,
And I'm not trying to be a jerk here. I'm really curious to explore what does that feel like? How does that, what happens with that? Or, in what way is one thing and another thing, and they're somehow different or in conflict?
they're not. They're not different. I mean, it's just something that happens. I mean, it happens.
Sure, of course.
In physical reality, right?
Well, you can say it happens, but even that genocide happens is a generalization. Genocide is a blanket statement. Let's say, you can say, in Serbia in such and such a decade there was genocide, which is a huge, talk about broad strokes. And the actuality of that genocide looked like individual people's individual experience from moment to moment. Sometimes the genocide looked like making love with your partner. Sometimes the genocide looked like getting food. Sometimes it, but it was genocide, But so that's sort of a broad overview exclaiming that a vast sweep of a vast period of experiencing for a vast number of individuals, each of which was having a unique experience, very different from each other, was somehow all genocide, as opposed to the fact that, in actual fact, it seems like a lot of people were killing a lot of other people for a mixed motive of reasons, some of which is political, some of which is religious, some of which is racial, some of which is just nuts and assholes.
But it just seems like.
What does it seem like?
What you just said, it just seems like people are killing each other, or even on
that can happen. People kill each other.
Or someone's cruel to an animal. Or,
that happens too. That can happen, doesn't it? What about that? People can also be nice to animals. People can also not kill each other. People can also be very supportive and generous with each other. That can happen too. It's all in the range of possibility. And clearly, in various ways is in actuality. Right? So what about that?
I just don't know. I just have felt strongly throughout my life that our human life and our human reality has meaning.
Right.
And I could be wrong. Maybe nothing matters.
But you can say certainly that you feel this way, and that's a fact. Whether you're right or wrong is someone else's problem. I feel this way, prove me wrong, and maybe you think you proved me wrong, and I'll disagree. You didn't prove me wrong. So you can feel certain ways. You can stand up for certain things. You can be oriented towards certain principles and be horrified by certain other principles, or actualities, or what have you. Right? Sure. I mean, this can happen. And of course, we're all very familiar with this. People have, according to their temperaments, have different degrees of being adamant about certain values. Some people are a little more laissez-faire, and other people are more purist, or what have you. There's a temperamental thing, or who knows what, right? So that can happen. People have their natures, and people's it's a. I mean, this is a little bit of a tangent, but it's a fundamental fallacy that we're all the same. People are unique. People are all one-offs. People are so different from each other in terms of every aspect of how they function, how they work. I mean, it's sort of commonplace for people to think everyone else is more or less like me, and in actuality, it's just not like that. And some people are very unprincipled. And they're not evil necessarily, they're just, compared to someone else who's very principled, they'll look at that person and say, God, this person is it must be evil or stupid or crazy or something. And the other person will shrug and say, oh, you're nuts.
Yeah.
And it's not, they're just different. It's not a matter of right or wrong, or this is the way it should be, or this is the way it shouldn't be. And yet, it can feel like that too, to some people. And so on again, it's just a matter of the incredible range of possibilities of the way humans can orient to them, sense of themselves, to their life. I mean, some people are very, very purposeful about themselves and their life and their functioning. I mean, just it seems to me just as a backbone of their personality. Other people are very sort of floaty and loose and jellyfish-like and go through life more chameleon-like and go into this and go into that.
Or more violent.
Oh yeah, or more violent. Some people are just have an aggressive energy, and they're not necessarily mean or uninvolved. They're just, their energy is forceful and outgoing. Their natural mode is bang. And other people are sort of quiet.
Well, even serial killers.
Sure.
I mean, it's a. What did you say? It's part of the range.
Anything can happen. I mean, we're getting into the nature of normalcy and the nature of sanity and all of that, and I mean, gosh knows what that is. But it's certainly observable that the range of ways that people can be is just inconceivably vast, and everyone's different than everyone else. Everyone's completely different than everyone else.
I am interested in your saying that the nature of reality, if I understood it correctly, is love, because I struggle with what looks like as a seeming dichotomy of if everything is love, how does all this ooky stuff appear?
Right.
And I guess something that seems to make sense or seems to, I guess I'm curious about the coexistence of universal love and what seems to be hatred.
Right.
The Buddhists talk about those three,
Yeah,
and they're
right.
all hatred, greed, and ignorance. And it really seems like that's afoot, and how can that be afoot if all reality is love? I'd just be interested in your take on that. I kind of go
Well,
like this with it.
not that it's particularly important, but my take on it is you have to look very closely at what love is.
Uh-huh.
To me, love is the absolute harmony of all actuality with itself. So the nature of all matter is in complete harmony with the nature of all other matter, and matter functions the way it does as this harmony. So when you see, iron gets close to fire and it melts, that is love. That is the matter conforming with its nature in accordance with the presence of actual conditions. And so it's harmony. You could just look at it as an agreement to dance together in perfection. But the dance the dance is the way it is. The interaction is the way it is. It doesn't conform necessarily to simplistic hopes or expectations. So, can stars explode? Yes. That's part of the nature of universal harmony. Matter is such that, these incredible thermonuclear reactions or whatever that stars consist of can reach a certain critical mass and stars can go nova. Can such stars possibly have planets around them? Yes. Can those planets become incinerated? Yes. Could there possibly be civilizations on such planets? Well, maybe. Let's just suppose, why not? So, if that happened, like the complete, apparently, let's say, seemingly arbitrary incineration. So suppose our sun went nova, 1 second ago, and we didn't know that it's happening, and it takes a while to get there. We'd all be toast instantly, right? If that's all in complete harmony with the dance of energies being exactly the way it is, then that's the perfection of love. Life form, we can look at the behavior of life forms, look at how humans behave. Humans have a broad range of behaviors, much of which is really nasty and hideous and horrible to anyone with any aesthetic sense, let alone moral sense. Right? So that can happen. Why can that happen? Why are humans the way they are? well, humans are the way they are because of the way biological forces work and evolution and genetics and blah, 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 blah. You know, why are ants the way they are? Why do red ants and black ants kill each other? You know, I mean, you know, who knows what? So looking at the way all of these various subsystems function and interact with each other, if you look at them in terms of the big picture, they're all expressions of the same rules. I mean, the game of reality is to be the way it is, and then the way it is conforms with absolute perfection is an incredibly intricate apparent dance according to those rules, right? But the rules are incredibly subtle and intricate and don't lend themselves to simplistic interpretation. So the range of what that dance can look like obviously can be vast. Can it look like galaxies exploding? Sure. Can it look like genocide? Apparently. Can it look like golden ages? Well, wouldn't that be nice if it could? You know. So and I looked at that and I said, yeah, but it's all exactly in accordance with the nature of this. It's all following the rules. I mean, to the extent such as it is.
Harmony is a way you hold that, following the rules.
Yeah.
It means harmonious, means
Yeah.
flowing and
Yeah.
evolving and
Yeah, and flowing and this harmonious flowing can look any way that it can look. And if you want to see some of the ways it can look around you.
so hatred and greed and ignorance don't really.
They're aspects of the harmonious flowing. They're spices in the stew.
Yeah.
I mean, harmonious flowing doesn't mean entire lack of turbulence necessarily. Clearly, doesn't mean lack of you know what you call friction or conflict, white water. Yeah. I mean, it can look like that, and you know, so maybe some of the things that we think brought up in human behavior may just be a turbulence in the natural dance of the nature of the energy. You know, the quirks and the way, when you do the implications of, when you bring out the changes of the rules, yeah, that can happen, and clearly that's the case, right?
Peter, is there any implication in that that as an awakened individual who realizes that everything is unfolding as it should, I should be okay with that. I should be living in acceptance of the way things actually are, and that not having that acceptance of the way things actually are, it reflects a resistance of
No.
a separate ego.
No, there's no should. You may everything, including the fact that you're not okay with something.
Okay. Yeah.
So you do take action.
Well, you may, yeah.
You may choose
Sure.
to take action and be okay with taking action or
Sure,
not taking
sure.
action.
But that's sort of like saying you're okay with this, but you're not okay with it, or you're not
Sure.
okay with it, but you're okay that you're not okay.
Exactly so, that latter. Yeah, exactly. So everything is exactly the way it is, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And exactly the way it is may include all kinds of not okaynesses.
Yeah.
I mean, this gets down to the nature of individuality. The apparent individuality exists within actuality, and in realization, the individuality doesn't disappear. It simply is seen in its true context. And the individuality is partial. It has a nature. It has intrinsic biases or tastes or preferences or what have you, right? And so that apparent partiality exists within a vastness and a totality which is more than it. But there's no conflict there. It's just, you know, it's a subsystem that has its own nature, and that's okay that it has that nature. And there is, you know, in actual practice, there is an interrelationship, or let's say a feedback between. So a realized being, the fact that they're realized, does affect the way their personalized aspects function. It's not what one might simplistically expect.
Are we talking about a big fat fork in the road right here?
I'm not sure what's that.
Well,
I mean, there's always the fork in the road we were talking about earlier.
That's what I mean. On the one hand, I'm grieving and completely anti-genocide
Sure.
and appalled and saddened and all that kind of stuff at what is going on.
Sure.
And on the other hand, on the other side of the fork of the road is the fact that I realize that that kind of stuff happens and that it's within, that interpretive framework and that kind of thing.
Sure, absolutely.
And in a way, we're harkening back to what went on yesterday about feeling. How I'm going to feel about two separate constructs.
Yeah. Things are not simple. Things don't necessarily fall into simplistic configurations.
Seemingly
They can be
not.
vastly complex and seemingly internally contradictory and moving in several ways at once that seem to be different directions and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And clearly, manifestly. I mean,
Yeah.
this is self-evident to anyone who does even a little bit of noticing, a little bit of thinking.
Okay, that's fucking gigantic, man. Well,
It's not pretty, life ain't pretty.
no, it ain't.
But it is.
But it can be.
Well, it's beautiful, but it's not pretty. And that deviates from actuality and generally in a way that's held to be superior. Hope is the very nature, the very essence of insanity. It is denying actuality and looking for resolution in a fantasy which is not actual. Might become actual, but the orienting to it as if it was or should be is quixotic. It's basically it's nuts. Whereas working with what is actual is sane. Actuality, reality is sin. The way things are is being with the way things are, the way they are is sanity, and denying that and trying to be with some other way that you wish or suppose or think or insist things should be or could be or are but aren't. That's like I'm Napoleon. It's like, well, except that I'm not Napoleon.
Well,
Other than that, I can be Napoleon.
insisting is one thing,
Yeah.
but hope, in the sense like, I hope my kids have a happy life.
Oh, well, sure. That's it.
I hope I have a nice retirement or whatever.
Sure. That's like trying to navigate functionally. That's a different. I mean, it's the same word, but it's a different. I mean, I'm talking about hope as an emotional orientation, like a neediness, needing it to be that way, and to the extent there would be devastation if it wasn't that way, or some sense of insult or damage if it wasn't that way. It's a position of great vulnerability that is basically unsupportable unless you get really, really, really lucky.
But, okay, I don't know what you just say. Hope is a projection of fantasy. But isn't hope a useful way to navigate in the world?
Yes. I mean, and this gets into the mystery of participation, the mystery of functionality. Clearly, we certainly seem to have some degree of functionality, right, in our life. It seems like we can do certain things to some degree, right? It seems like we have some degree of, intentionality or participation or functionality.
Is hope like a salve we put on what is perceived as a wound?
Well, if it's treated that way, that's what I'm looking at it as a dangerous strategy.
It's not be a dangerous strategy. Like if you had a biopsy and you were hopeful that it was not cancerous,
Right.
but that hope I see as being positive.
It's not. It's not. You're setting yourself up for a fall. If it is cancerous, you're going to feel some degree of devastation or wounding or loss. Whereas if you say, I got a biopsy, I might have cancer.
Well, yeah.
Then you're not set up for anything. You're like,
No.
then if it is cancer, well now what do I do? We work with it.
Yes.
If it's not cancer, oh that's nice. I don't have to
That's-
deal with it, no medical bills, and what a load off.
Yeah.
But see, in that transition
Okay,
as well.
but my perception of hope is not exclusive of dealing with the reality of an outcome. You could,
Right.
it's.
Well, it's an art form. It's an art form. But again, the degree. It's all a matter of the degree to which there's an emotional investment in things needing to any degree be a certain way, because reality goes its way, not your way, unless it just happens to.
Yeah, I guess for me that in that situation was recognizing that what the results could be, but choosing not to go to that negative perception.
Well, that's an equal insanity. To get all pessimistic because I might have cancer is just as crazy as saying I don't have cancer. I know I don't. I know I don't. I know I don't. I know I don't. When you don't really know, you don't. You're just asserting it as an emotional stance.
But choosing to not to be in the dark place until
Well, yeah. But never be in a dark place.
No.
Cancer isn't a dark place. It's just a weird event.
Yeah.
And there's nothing but weird events. So how is cancer any different than anything else?
I think what I'm getting from what she's skirting around, because I see it as skirting around it, is having not an optimism in a sort of a silly kind of juvenile way, but having an attitude of knowing that whatever comes, you can handle it.
Sure.
Because life handles whatever is going on. You don't have to have any part in it, in a sense. If you understand that you're not this limited person who either has or hasn't got cancer, every moment resolves itself. Every moment manifests in whatever way. And if there's a certain kind of temperament to have an optimism for being comfortable in that, then that to me is more optimism or positivity rather than hope. Because there's no need for hope.
No.
You know, in fact, that it's okay.
Yeah, everything's okay.
So. And the
way
we hold the kind of emotions, the kind of thoughts, the kind of way we see the world and be with what is, has an effect on our immune system and
Exactly.
chemistry.
Any kind of holding at all
Yeah.
is a limitation of flexibility. It's an ossification. Life itself is an endless flow, spontaneously adjusting to itself in real time. When you talk about cancer and things like that, we're getting into the big bugaboo, which is fear of death, which people psychologically tend to have. And fear of death, everyone dies. You're gonna die. Everyone here is gonna die. Surprise, surprise, right? Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, shit.
No, duh. I mean, that's the one given. That's the one certainty, right? If there's any certainty. But you can't know what that means. You can't know what death is until you do it. You're going to know what death is. Everyone is. I'm going to know what death is. But you don't know what death is until you're dying. So it's a question mark. It might be the greatest thing ever was. It might be something, God, if I known it was going to be like this, I would have killed myself a long time ago. Maybe death is like the ultimate orgasm. Who knows what, right? But we project a fantasy of, oh, death is horrible, I'm going to lose everything, whatever. And all of a sudden we're carrying around this big black cloud of dread and fear and horror of death, and I'm going to death, and oh my God, maybe I have a serious illness. Oh no. But it's all just anticipation of the fear of death, which is a total insanity. It's a total denial of reality. I mean, anyone that doesn't know for a fact, with an absolute certainty they're going to die, is an idiot. I mean, please. Call a spade, right? And anyone that pretends to know what dying is going to be like is not thinking very carefully. It's not clear thinking. No one has come back to say what death is like. I mean, but a few people who have written books aside. You want to write a bestseller, write about, oh, I died and I came back. It's all mythology. It's all guesswork. It's all stories. The fact is, near-death experience is fine, but that says what near-death experiences are like. It doesn't say what death is like. The claim that near-death experience is, if there's any relationship to death, is bravado.
Right.
May or may not, but you can't prove it.
It's usually around my interpretation of that experience.
Always.
When I'm having it, or after I've had it, or my belief that. Very good.
You're the star of the show.
Okay.
So,
What are you doing?
Virginia.
Every Halloween.